Yes, my people, my very beautiful people, my is in contact with me and who will come in contact with me. God bless you all. Thank you guys for listening to this Jamaican. So, as I always do, I want to say all praises to the triune God, the God who is above all gods, the God who gives us wisdom to decipher things and to make sense of sensible things and to make nonsense of things that are nonsense. And as I always say, Islam is nothing but nonsense. Um, it is crazy how I made RJ a mod. I think I did, but he's not showing up as a mod. I make a lot of people a mods, but I don't see them showing up as mods here. So I don't know if you guys can see yourself as mods. I have no idea if you can see yourself as mods, but I did make, I think, like 7 people mods. I will make some more mods because we see a lot of pornography and all that stuff coming up. But what I want to ask the mods is, please don't put the Muslims on timeout, because this is also for them. You know, whatever their comment is, as long as they don't disrespect our Lord and Savior and our God. If they disrespect me, it's okay. I'm just a man. You know, I know how to deal with that. But we like their comment. Nim Grace. Oh, did I make you a mod? I don't remember, but I could do that sometime. Hi everyone, and thank you guys for being here. So today we are going to be looking at a topic, you know, that is I don't want anybody who is from another race to be offended by this, because I am not racist in no way. To be real with you, I have a different outlook on slavery than a lot of people do. I actually look at slavery in a sense that a lot of people don't. When I look at what goes on in Africa and other places in the world, sometimes God have a way of doing things. I believe that God have a way of doing things. I would maybe be a Muslim if my ancestors were still in Africa. And for me, I think that God has done a great thing taking my ancestor out so that I am not a Muslim, because soul is more important. Soul is more important. Your soul is more important than what men do to your body. And sometimes sacrifices got to be made in order to change the outcome of certain situation. And sometimes God allow certain things to happen to change what, you know, would what was to stop things from continuing in that way. So anyway, I'm going to be sharing a video from our brother God Logic, and from the video we are going to communicate. You know, I want to share a lot of the comments from our brothers and sisters. I really like to see what you're saying in this video, because sometimes when I'm speaking, it's difficult to pay attention to what you're saying, but I really want to see your interaction in this video. I was supposed to make the video earlier, but you know, I'm a nurse, and when you go out there, sometimes your night is easy. Sometimes your night is easy. I show myself as a man. Okay. Christian Malik is a mod. He is a mod. So Christian Malik is a mod. Christian Malik is a mod, and a lot of people are mods. I think I make 7 mods, but I want to make more. Nim Grace and Daniel, he's been around a long time with me. So I want to make him a mod. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you and I love all of you. But so, you know, all praises to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the one who, oh, James 19, I need to make you a mod if I haven't already done that too. You've been around with me for forever, you know, and Dragon Daenerys. I think she's a mod. I'm not remember. Dragon. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, so let's get into it. And there's a brother who have a channel. His name is Comment Warrior Jesus Christ Follower, something like that. Comment Warrior Jesus. I think he's going through some things. I don't know what he's going through. He's not telling us, but he's going through something because he's thinking about permanently giving up on his channel. And I don't know what's going on. His channel, he do great job when he take videos from different channels and put them together and make. So I don't know what's going on with him. And sometimes the things that goes on in our lives, we don't want to let the whole world know about the things that are going on in our lives, because it's not only our family, because all Christians, we are family and we should help each other. But sometimes it's not only our family that is listening to these our comments, and they take it and use it against us, and those are that's where the evil comes in. But let's get into the video and let's give the Holy Spirit the allowance, in the sense that we allow the Holy Spirit to guide us, and so that we don't make any error or misrepresent anything. And I want to thank God for a brother, Sam Shamon, because a lot of the knowledge that is going to be used in this video is from his research and his like, I don't know how this guy does what he does is crazy to me. Like, literally, the discipline he have to do these things must come from God Almighty. So I appreciate the brother. So, and the one thing we remember, the Muslim will ask you, did that come from Sam Shamon? Did that come from, whether it come from Dr. Seuss, as long as it is truthful and from Islamic sources, it can be used against these Abduls, can be used against Islam. So let me show you something. Let's get into the video so we can talk about it. It took me some time to get this mod thing going, but as soon as I got it going, I realized there was another way to do it. I was doing it a way where you type the name in, and sometimes the person doesn't show up. But then there's another way where you could click beside the person's name, and it will tell you delete the person, put the person on timeout, or make the person a mod. And that's how I get to do some mods last night when I had some downtime at work. So I appreciate all you guys, and I will make more people who have been with me throughout this, ordeal. Like my other station, my other channel, Islam is a Mess, is growing, and I have people who have been with me since, forever, man. It's crazy. Thank you guys, man. So anyway, let's look. Okay, so here we go. We want to start like somewhere right here where everything starts, like there.
Get to it. I'm waiting.
We're waiting for more of your Muslim brothers.
Bruh. Let's just get right to it. They'll come. Don't worry, man. Just are y'all afraid of this work or what? Can we read some Exodus?
They are turning for the left shoulder.
So this is a Muslim called X, very cocky and think that he is knowledgeable, and that's the way you realize with these Muslims, very cocky and believe that they know what they're talking about. It was so crazy that I've been talking to a Muslim. His name's something like Mohammed Khan or something Khan, and on YouTube. And because I have this podcast coming up about slavery, he decided, let's talk about slavery. And he just spamming all over the place without any context behind anything that he says. Like, because you take a verse out of its context and you post it there without telling what the surrounding context is saying, or what the Torah teaches about these things. Then at the end of the day, it looks like it's so bad and your religion is better than what this teaches. But then when you go down into the nitty-gritty and reveal the overall context, then you realize like, whoa, then they jump from one thing to another thing, from man worshiping to this worshiping and that. When you show them that their God is nothing but a man, then they jump to something else, and all over the place like a frog.
Man sells his daughter as a servant. I want to know, why would a man?
Yeah, explain it. We haven't started yet. Hold on.
So
here.
do you see how impatient and clownish these idiots are? A man sell his daughter as a servant. He jumped so fast. A man sell his daughter as a servant. The brothers have to check him because he can't wait to go, because that's what they do. If you ever notice, when you have a dialogue with a Muslim, I have a dialogue with a guy called Don Mohammed and Facebook, and when he see that I was beating up on him like Mike Tyson in his prime before he become a Muslim, Mike Tyson in his prime, you know what he did? I was beating up on him like my brother Tyson Fury. So I was knocking him out like Tyson Fury knock out people. And when he realized how much I was knocking him out, what he decided to do, make about 6 comments, and every comment is so long with all these Bible verses, all this stuff, all these different issues. Because what they decide to do is bombard you with things so that it looked like they win the debate when they didn't. So you know what I do? I took a couple things of what he says from the first post, and I answer to those, and I write "to be continued." And since that, I haven't seen him. Because he realized you're not stupid to give up. You're just gonna show how stupid he is. And in the old thing I wrote, like, if I could easily refute these comments from you, what do you think I will do with the rest? And I write "to be continue" at the bottom, and he disappeared.
Hold your horses, dude. We're waiting up.
You guys missionary for
X-Planet. The best part is you don't get to run the room.
No, but you guys are highly invested in some YouTube money. Why don't you get to it, man? Are y'all here for money or what?
Come on now.
And why these clowns believe that people make all this money from YouTube? Why do they believe that people make all this money from YouTube? I make no money at all from YouTube, none whatsoever. And I don't want to make any money from YouTube, really. But there are people who should make money from YouTube. But I myself, I don't want to make any money from YouTube. And if I do at any point make any money from YouTube, I don't want to keep the money. That's me. But there are people who take this as their lifeline, what they do. I don't. I go to work almost every day. This month is the least I work in the past 4 or 5 months, but yet still I've only been off from the beginning of this month. Today is the 9th. I think I've been off like what? I don't remember how many days I've been off, to be real with you. But this is the most I've been off in a lot of days. So, for me, I think I'm blessed. In nursing, you can make money. So I don't worry about making money. But there are people who should make money, like Sam Shimon, should make money. The research that brother does, he should make money. Why shouldn't he? Why?
Gavin, to how many Christians there?
Bring all your Christians. Bring the Israelites too. This goes for the Israelites.
Then this clown said, "Bring the Israelite." And with another voice, he will tell you that the Israelites are destroying the Christians. The Israelites are destroying this. And he said, this goes for the Israelite. because he's so cocky and so into himself that he believes that what he's gonna say is gonna destroy the Christians.
And I'm gonna need you to mute up for a second while we set up this room.
Can you mute me for just a moment? I'm doing something.
All right, got
Yeah,
you.
we got you.
So, yeah. So what we're doing here is we're waiting for because there's a lot of Christians here already. We want the Muslims.
So let's go up a
Joe,
little.
X Planet, and who is this? Dappy Boy and Muhammad.
I'll be honest with you. We're the only ones who want y'all. You know, you're so disrespectful. You know.
Okay, so Dappy Boy, can real quick listen. So I'm only gonna, and I'm sure the other Christians are gonna do the same. We're only gonna bring things.
And this is what the Muslims do. When you go to their podcast, they throw you all over the place, and you go to their rooms and stuff. They mute you. They do all kind of things to you. But they are the biggest crybaby, just like Muhammad was a crybaby. Muhammad was going around robbing people, raping people, doing all kind of things to people. And then when they write poetry against him, he become a crybaby and kill them. And kill the people who were writing, because Muhammad was the biggest crybaby ever. Everything happened to Muhammad is God got to be involved into it. People go to Muhammad's house and he don't want to tell them to leave. He write a Quran verse and say it's God. Tell them, no, when you come here, don't stay. Crybaby. Muhammad was the biggest crybaby. And this is why Aisha says, I feel like your Lord hastened to fulfill your desire. Because Muhammad was such a crybaby.
Things from your sources, nothing from our own pocket. So the
I
problem
got the Bible
is,
with me, don't worry.
Perfect. So the problem is, X, Dappy Boy, and Muhammad, if you are a Muslim as well. No, I don't think. Never mind, Muhammad. Dappy Boy and X. The problem is that once we're finished with you two, every Muslim on this app is going to say you two don't have knowledge. So I want the guys with knowledge.
Can we get to it?
So you start this debate by first stepping on our
Dappy Boy, hold on. I'm sorry.
And do you notice, Dappy Boy, you start this debate by first stepping on our. He never listened to when X was talking about in the beginning and kind of being condescending, because this is what they are, crybabies. All these Muslim dawah donkeys are just crybabies. Crybabies they are. They have no balls whatsoever. That's literally what they are. Literally, they make more money than any Christians will make. Even Andrew Tate, you think Andrew Tate is doing this because he for free? No, they pay. You hear Mohammed Ijab actually in a video admitted that they have a budget on Andrew Tate. That they put a budget in on Andrew Tate. Where would you get a budget from if you don't have money? If you're not making money, where do you get the budget from? What does Mohammed Ijab do? What is his work? More than he make YouTube videos and stuff like that, and he have a foundations and other stuff. Because they are these donation, they make all this money to do what they're doing. And they are recruited to do what they're doing. The lying Ibn Farouk, he's recruited to do what he does. Ibn Farouk act like he's not making money, but he makes a whole lot of money from these stuff. That's what they do. Literally. Yep. They're so arrogant and they can't back up their arrogance. And that's the problem, you know, because if you look at what will transpire, you will see.
Somebody, X, do you have life blocked?
I got 0 people blocked. I do not block.
Right, well,
Can you admit you blocked me?
I'm still going to move you down.
It's all right.
I'm still going to move you down temporarily because he can't get in. You'll be the only one that has a
I'll
block.
go down, but I don't. You watch this, he won't bring.
All right.
So one person have life blocked, and life is the guy from Defund the Devil. So do you see they're already blocking people, You know, I don't believe in blocking any Muslim unless they are disrespectful to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and our God. I believe that let them talk, because sometimes what comes out of their mouth you can use against them. It's easy to use what comes out of their mouth against them. If you guys go back and watch one of my video on Islam is a mess, it's not on Shake Your Booty, it's not on that channel, it's on Islam is a mess. If you go back and watch one of my video about me disciplining a Dawa donkey, you will see where the Muslim kicked me off his stream, but I was persistent to reveal him. And I have him saying that the reason Ibn Masud did not want Zayd to compile the Quran is because Ibn Masud did not like Zayd. And that's not true. That's not true. Ibn Masud think that Zayd was a fraud and he was deceitful. He think that the recitation of Zayd Quran was not correct. And you see in the video where I actually show what Ibn Masud actually, why he was against Zayd. He actually said there is deceit in that man. There is deceit in him. There is deception in him. It goes so far that Uthman have the people beat up Ibn Masud, and Ibn Masud was one of the 4 men that Muhammad said to learn the Quran from. And they beat that man so bad that they broke 2 of his ribs, and he ended up having hernia from the beating. And then they arrested him and he died in prison. Can you imagine that? If Jesus was saying to you, because Jesus told us to learn from his disciples. In Luke, I think Luke chapter 13 verse 10 or Luke 10 verse 13, if I remember correctly, he told us, he said, learn from his disciple, listen to his disciple, if I remember correctly. But can you imagine if he was telling us as Christians who, and the people who live in those days who were Christian, grab the disciple, Christians I'm talking about, grab the disciples, beat them up, break their ribs, and then lock them up in prison until they died. Do you see the evil of Islam?
Let's try to get him in.
We got Omar down there too. He's claims to be a knowledgeable Muslim, so let's make sure we get him up here.
Perfect.
Don't
forget, ladies and gentlemen.
One happy Muslim.
Man, I thought this was.
Go ahead and get this started, but I'm really, I mean, you're worried about the Hebrew Israelites. You should be worried about your Ummah, man. Where are they?
Yeah. So he said the Hebrew Israelites are destroying the Christian because what he's doing, he think that the Hebrew Israelites are monolithic, that they all believe the same thing. There are many Hebrew Israelites who believe exactly what we believe. Exactly what we believe. There are many Hebrew Israelites. I've encountered different kind of Hebrew Israelite, and there are many Hebrew Israelites who believe that Jesus is God, Jesus is the Messiah, salvation come to Jesus, salvation for all people. There are many of them. So I don't know what is wrong with these guys. But do you hear where he say, bring the Hebrew Israelite and we destroy them? And then now, just a while ago, what he actually says is the Hebrew Israelites are destroying us Christians, as if there are, because that's the same thing that they do with the Jews. Now they're bandwagoning with the black Hebrew, the so-called black Hebrew Israelite, and the same thing they do with the Jews like Tovia Singer, even though the Jews don't believe that Muhammad is a prophet, and the black Hebrew Israelite don't believe that Muhammad is a prophet. They actually believe that Muhammad is a false prophet and a nasty bastard.
I mean,
I'm right here, man. I'm
should
a
these
dude,
got
look.
there's
There's a ummah. There's
Yeah,
a ummah
Lunch
that
made it
has
in.
one follower. Like I have
All
an
right.
ummah on my own. I'm right here.
okay. So I see how this goes. So once you get utterly destroyed, then all the Muslims can say, "Well, we weren't there." I got it. No
Danny,
problem.
let's stop the chit chat. Who's? I want no logic. No one else come up
Where's
here.
Deppy Boy?
It's me and the biggest
Come back
Christian
up, Deppy.
apologist on this app. One on.
Do you see? He's so confident in his dumb self that he he can take on anybody on the panel. That's how confident this clown is, and and the way he's acting. Look at how he's just gonna go off without context. Just listen to him in a minute. He's coming up in a minute.
One, please. Like I'm saying, pretty please.
Thank you. All right.
I'll be right back, everyone. I gotta go pray.
All right.
Go ahead, pray.
Pray for X.
And I'll
Look at this. One Muslim say, "I gotta go pray," and the other one say, "Go pray." Do you see this ritualistic dumbness that they do called prayer? Do you see? Prayer is a thing for any Christian. You could pray wherever you are. Prayer is a thing that you could just pray wherever you are, because we have a Father that we can talk to at any given moment. Driving in your car, even while you're talking, you could actually be praying while you're talking, because our mind is so powerful that you could be prayerful while you are speaking. Even I'm speaking now, and I could be speaking to God at the same time, because what? Our mind is like that. While our mouth is speaking, our mind could be saying something to God, like, praising God, thanking God, all this thing, glorifying God. But this religion is such a ritual that say, "I gotta go pray," and then the other Muslims say, "Go pray." He's not as disciplined as. And what did Muhammad say about the person who missed prayer? Wow.
Allah name. Amen.
Y'all better give that left shoulder some reward.
All right, ladies and gents. So this is how we're doing this. So for the first 30 minutes, we're going to allow the Muslim to make their argument against Christianity, against the Bible, on slavery, whatever objections they have and make up. We're going to spend 30 minutes doing that, going back and forth on that specific topic, slavery in Christianity. No segueing, no going off topic, no nothing else. And then after that 30 minutes is up, is going to be now the subject of slavery in Islam. Okay? And so we'll be making our objections and arguments against the Muslims on that aspect. No switching up, no going off topic, no running. So this is what we agreed to. This is what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and start now. I'm about to start the timer. Any Muslim on the stage can start off by giving their argument on slavery in the Bible. And let me go ahead and start the timer. We're going to start this right about... Hold up, Cass. Okay. Let's get it.
First question: is slavery justified? Like the person in the chat just asked or just stated, is slavery justified?
What do you mean by slavery?
What should I begin? Okay. The 10th commandment, Exodus 20 verse 17 and Deuteronomy 5:21, commands you people not to covet a man slave. The Old Testament sets two standards for the treatment of slaves depending on whether they were Jews or Gentiles. We've got Leviticus 25 verses 39 through 43. Says slaves taken from among the Hebrew people are to be treated well as if they were hired servants and be permitted their freedom in Jubilee year. Leviticus 25:44 is concerned with the treatment of Gentile slaves, bondmen and bondsmaids. Verse 44 says Gentile slaves can be bought and sold at will. Verse 45, Leviticus 25 verse 45 says that even their children are the perpetual property of their owners. It is silent as to any rights of Gentile slaves or whether they are to be treated well. Leviticus 25 verse 46 reminds that the Jews that slaves bought from among their own people are to be treated in such a manner, implying that there is no such obligation for the treatment of Gentile slaves. Let's go to Corinthians chapter 7 verse 21 through 23. Paul asks slaves to be content with their Lord because they'll be free with the Lord. So we've got in the Old Testament clear verses. You know, we've got the verses saying that, you know, you should sell your own daughter into slavery. We've got Exodus 21, verse 7 through 11. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she's not to, you know, go free as a male servant does.
Is that the way you debate? Is that the way you debate? Just jumping all over the place like a donkey. Is that the way you debate? Like there is no, he have no he jump and he say Paul says this and Paul say that, just jumping from one thing to the other thing. This clown have no idea what Paul says. Like, you know, I just want to look at what Paul say about slavery, so that this idiot, just to reveal this idiot, what Paul say about slavery. I want you guys pay attention to what Paul says, because he went to Corinthians, and since he gone to Corinthians, we have to show you what Paul say about slavery. You know, because that's New Testament. New Testament, God, God with Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, literally abolish slavery. Literally tell us there should be no slave. When you read the Bible, verses like "Do unto others as you like them to do unto you," Matthew 7 verse 12. What is that telling you? When you read "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you," Matthew 5 verse 44. What is that telling you, man? You know, what is that telling you? So let's show these people, you know, whoever of the Muslim will ever watch this. Let's show them what Paul believed about slavery. We are in the business of revealing things that Paul believed about slavery. Let's show Paul, since he quote from Paul. And if you notice, when you're dealing with Paul, Paul is dealing with the reality of slavery. Like, you are dealing with the reality of slavery and you have no power. You do not have the power to abolish slavery, but you're living in the reality of slavery. Like a lot of the people in the United States who were living in the time of slavery, they did not agree with slavery. A lot of the folks living in the United States at the time of slavery, they did not agree with slavery. Don't believe that all the people living in the United States during the time of slavery agree with it. There were many people who were buying slaves, but treating the slaves as if they were not slaves. But the reason they buy them, because that is the only way they can have control over the way that they are treated. Because if I say, for example, I was living in the time of slavery and I was white, and I see slavery as an evil thing, but I want to help. How do you think that I could help? The only way I could help is by owning slave myself. And how do I treat the slave is a different thing and a Christian perspective. Because let me show you what Paul say about slaves. Do you see where we are at Ephesians? And the Muslim will only, if they read in Ephesians, they will only read Ephesians 9 verse 5 and stop there. But let me show you what Paul says about slavery, since he quoted Corinthians, and that's written by Paul. That's Paul's writing, that's Paul's saying. So let's look at what Paul says. Paul says in Ephesians 9 verse 5 to 9, "Slave, obey your earthly master with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ." Just as you would obey Christ. Remember that. Bear that in mind. Just as you would obey the Messiah. What does that mean? Means in a way that is godly and decent. Because what? Jesus did not demand sex from no woman. Jesus did not demand what Muhammad demand from no man. Jesus did not allow a man to stab a pregnant woman, a pregnant slave, in their stomach and get away with it. Muhammad did that. Muhammad allowed a blind man to stab his pregnant slave, pregnant with his own baby, into the stomach and got away with it. So when he said, just as you would obey the Messiah, just as you would, how would a Christian obey the Messiah? A Christian would obey the Messiah in a godly manner. Because what? If you are doing something ungodly, then that's not the way you would obey the Messiah. So these are the things that you got to bear in mind. Paul continue, obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ. Notice what he says. As slaves or even servants of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Notice what it says. Doing the will of God, meaning doing what is righteous in God's sight, not doing what is evil and ungodly. What is the will of God is not for a woman to have sex with a man outside of marriage. But Muhammad was allowing his bandits to have sex with women. And guess what he would do? Even sell them. He would even sell the women after the women have children. After the women have children for these Muslim men, they would go ahead and sell the women after that. After that. Let me show you that. Let me show you how evil Muhammad was and his bandits were. Let me show you. So look at this right here. Look at this right here. In the business of revelation. Look at this. Sunan Abu Dawud 3954. Narrated Jibir ibn Abdullah. We sold slave mothers. What do you think this means? We sold slave mother during the time of the messenger of Allah and of Abu Bakr. When Umar was in power, he forbade us and we stopped. Umar have more conscience than Allah's messenger. What do you think slave mothers mean? Let me show you. Do you think that it means that a slave that was pregnant by another slave? No. Watch this. We used to sell our slave women and the mothers of our children. Sunan ibn Majah 25:17. Do you see the evil donkey religion? Do you see the donkey religion that these clowns are trying to compare to God's religion? Do you see the donkey, the wicked donkey religion that these clowns are trying to compare to God's religion? Do you see the jackass religion, the clown religion, the clown God and the clown prophet that these dumb dawa donkeys are trying to compare to God's true religion? Do you see it? Look at it, my people, and you will see. You got eyes. You will see these things. We used to sell our slave women and the mothers of our children, meaning slave women who have children for them. Can you imagine that? After a woman have a child for you, you sell that woman as a slave. Whoa. Whoa. Let's get back to what Paul was saying. Let's get back to what Paul was saying. Do you see the donkey religion? Do you see the wicked donkey religion called Islam? Let's get back to what Paul was saying, because we're going to go through this thing and we're going to reveal some things. So here is Paul again. Let's get back to what Paul says. The will of God is not for us to be sinful, because Paul says doing the will of God from your heart. That's what Paul says. Paul said to do the will of God from your heart. The will of God is not for us to be sinful, but for us to be righteous. So Paul was not telling the slave to obey. Paul, look what Paul says. Paul continues. Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people. Meaning in a righteous way. You're doing the will of God. There is no way you could be doing the will of God and doing evil at the same time, because God doesn't require you to do evil. The Messiah tells us to do unto others as we like them to do unto us. And the Messiah also tells us to love our enemies as we love ourselves. But look at this. It's not finished yet. Listen to this. Paul continues, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do. Whatever good. The Lord will reward you for whatever good you do. Not bad. Not having sex outside of marriage. Not perverting yourself. In the Quran, I think it's Surah 24:33 or something like that. Allah actually tell them, do not prostitute your slave women. Let me actually find it and read it. I show you how wicked this God of Islam is. And how perverted that idiotic clown they call a God was. So let's get back there. So let's let's read it. Let's read a part of it, because it's a kind of longer verse. So let's read a part of it. So where we start at. Yes, and do not compel your slave girl to prostitution. Listen to this. Do not compel your slave girl to prostitution. Sounds so good. So beautiful. If they desire chastity, to seek thereby the temporary interest of this worldly life. Sounds so good. But notice right here, if they desire to be to remain in chastity. That kind of sounding crazy anyway. But listen to this. And if someone compel them, then indeed Allah is, after their compulsion, forgiving and merciful. So if you compel a woman to be in prostitution, after that, Allah will forgive you. And this is Surah 24, verse 33. Do you see the evil? Do you see the opposite? Paul is telling you to do the will of God. And the will of God is that you should not commit sexual immorality. But look at the opposite of Allah. If you force a slave woman into prostitution, then after that Allah will forgive you. And look at this again. Let's continue with Paul. Paul was telling the slave to do what is good in the sight of God, not what is bad or unrighteous. Paul says, serve the master like you serve Jesus, in a righteous and decent way. Jesus was not asking to have sex with anyone. Like you serve Jesus means just as you serve Jesus. Just as, identical to how you serve Jesus. In this, in whatever requirement you are supposed to do as a slave. But the slave, you're not supposed to be indulged in sexual act. Let them. The slave master can rape a slave. Yes, because they a person can force themselves on somebody and rape them. But guess what? That's not the will of God. And you did not agree with that. The slave did not agree with that. But if the slave is going around sleeping with the master, that is adultery, because the master have a wife and the master, and they're not married. The slave is not married to the master. But because of the evil of man, the slave may be raped, but that's not the slave's desire. Do you see that? Jesus wasn't going around raping anyone either. Muhammad did. And writing, look at this. And writing Quranic verses that make it okay to capture and have sex with slave. Look at this. This is about Muhammad. Listen, Muhammad. This is from this. Muhammad wrote Quran 33 verse 50 to 51, giving himself the right to more women than anyone, cousin, aunt, wife, slave girl, etc. His God was a pimp supplying, so that Muhammad may have no discomfort. Literally, this is what the Quran says. So that you will have no discomfort. So give you all the women in the world and you will have no discomfort. What a stupid God that was. Isn't that a stupid God? Do you believe that 20 women bring more comfort than one woman bring? No, it doesn't. When I used to write poetry, I wrote a poem, which I can't share with you guys because it's published. And I don't want nobody to know who I am, so I can't share that with you. But the poem I wrote has something to do with something like that. I have something to do with multiple women versus one woman. It's crazy. And this is actually what the Quran says. Muhammad was walking around town with semen stain on his clothing. And here is a citation. Muhammad was walking around with semen on his clothes. This man have 9 to 11 wives and many slave girls that he slept with. Visible semen stain on his clothing, but his God was still worried about how many vaginas he have. I hope there is no children watching. His God was still worried about how many vaginas he have, to the point where his God is giving him more women than anybody else. We're telling him, oh, right there is a Quranic verse that is written, giving him more women than anyone. So let's get back to what Paul says. Now, look at verse 9, what Paul says in verse 9. Paul says, masters. Now he's addressing the master. He says, treat your slave in the same way. Wow. Do you hear what Paul said to the master? Treat your slaves in the same way. That means whatever the slave do to you, the righteous thing that the slave do to you, you need to return that favor to the slave. Does that sound like slavery? The slavery that we had, 400 years of slavery that we had? Does that sound like the slavery we have here in America? Does it sound like that slavery? No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like that slavery. I'm not saying that there were not slave masters who practiced this, because I do believe there were Christian slave masters who were practicing this kind of family relationship with their slaves. That's what I believe. I don't believe all the slave masters in the United States were cruel people. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. You know, when you pass some people, I already talked to some people, like my neighbor, when I talk to her and see how accommodating and nice she is, that's a human spirit, you know, that's a real human spirit, that innate spirit from God Almighty to be, for us to be kind to each other in that way. So For me to think that every slave master in the United States was mean and evil and beating their slaves, I don't believe that. I don't. I believe there were family relationship with some slaves that some slave master have with their slaves. And this is the advice of Paul, that the master treat your slaves in the same way. That's what Paul says. Read it yourself. Verse 9. He told the slaves how to treat the master with godly, serve them with godly, and don't go outside of the will of God. And then he's saying to the master, treat your slave in the same way. And do you remember there was a story, I can't remember the name of the guy, where Paul actually met a slave, and the slave became a Christian. And Paul is sending the slave back to the master. And Paul wrote a letter and tell the master to receive the slave back as a brother. Let me see if anybody in the chat knows that instance. Anybody can post that. I can't remember the name of the slave. If the slave was, is it Simeon? I can't remember. But I remember Paul is sending this man back to the master with all the knowledge that the slave have about God, about Jesus, and he's sending him back. And he wrote a letter with the man and tell the master to accept the slave as a brother, because that's what Christianity and slavery is about. The reality of slavery is real. It's not like, oh, slavery is not real. It is real. Totally real. Totally real. Even today, there are slavery in places of the world. In Muslim countries. In Muslim countries, I've told you guys before to look up Kenyan women going to Saudi Arabia to work, like a lot of Jamaican come to the United States to work in the hotel industry and the farm industry and other stuff, in farming and other stuff, and nobody treat them like a slave here. They are treated like family here. It's so crazy that the experience that some of these Jamaicans come back home, when I was back home in Jamaica, and tell me about their experience here as a farm worker here in the United States. And nobody was telling me a story, oh, well, man, they work you like a slave and they treat you so bad and they do this. No, there was none of those stories. I wanted to come to work as a farm worker. I was looking eagerly into come working in the farms here in the United States. I was. Because I've never heard a story where anybody beating anybody in. But guess what? Right now, you look Kenyan women enslaved in Saudi Arabia and see how many videos come up. I'm sure you will find more, maybe over 7-8 videos come up about Kenyan women and other women of Africa enslaved in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and what's the other one that Andrew Tate was in the other day? The one that Andrew Tate visited the other day. When he become when he make the lateral move to become a Muslim. Enslave Africans in those countries. Do you see what happened the other day in to Nigerians in what was that? Libya? Look it up. Muslims enslaving people. And guess what they were enslaving? Nigerian Muslims. What a beautiful religion. So listen what he says. This is what verse 5 and verse 6 says. Say, serve them as you would serve Jesus. Do you notice what verse 5 and verse 6 says? Serve. So if Paul is saying treat your slave, not what Paul say, treat your slave in the same way. And notice what Paul says in verse 5 and verse 6. Serve them like you serve Jesus. This is what verse 5 and verse 6 say. Do you see that? So Paul was telling the slave master to serve the slave like you serve Jesus. Does that sound like slavery? No, it sounds like a family affair. Circumstances put people into a certain situation where they become slaves. And Paul is telling the Christian slave masters how to treat the slaves. The Christian slave masters, he starts appealing to them. The Christian slave master, he appealing to them. He appealing to the Christian slaves, and he appealing to the Christian slave masters. He says, hey, serve your master like you serve Jesus. And then he said to the slave master, serve your slaves like you serve Jesus. Why? Because he says, treat your slaves in the same way. Treat the slaves in the same way. So I don't know why this Muslim is mentioning Paul's writing. Notice what Paul says. Continue. It didn't stop there. Paul says, do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. So if you're not to threaten them, that means you're not to beat them, you're not to have sexual intercourse with them illegally against the Messiah's law that is written in Matthew 5, verse 28 to like 31. Do you see? And this is the conclusion. This was to be a family affair, as Messiah told us. In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you. Matthew 7, verse 12. So I don't know why he mentioned Paul writing. Because these idiots, dour donkeys, what they do, they take the Bible out of its context. They take the Bible out of its context. If you're going to quote what Paul says, you need to quote Paul within the context of what Paul is teach. This is literally how you approach the Bible. And thank you guys for being here. Right now I have 26 people, 27 people watching, and all glory to God Almighty, all glory to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Between both channels, we have 26 people watching. So thank you guys for being here. And after this stream, I'll make some more mods because it's good. Have so much, guys. I appreciate you guys. So let's get back to this video, and because but I just want to show this idiot why this idiot is spamming verses all over the place and quoting Paul out of Paul's context.
She does not please the master who has selected her for himself. He must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food.
Hey, I want you guys to pay attention. Do you notice what he says? If he married to the master's son, he must grant her the right of a daughter. Wow. And do you remember the hadith that I just read where Muslim men were selling the mothers of their children? Sunan ibn Majah 25:17. Jabir bin Abdullah was heard to say, we used to sell our slaves or slave women and the mothers of our children when the Prophet was still living among us. And we did not see anything wrong with that. Oh, wow. Can you imagine? The man is saying that we did not see anything wrong with that. Can you imagine the conscience of those people? How dangerous these conscience of these people were. That they didn't see nothing wrong with selling the mother of their children. Wow. You didn't see nothing wrong with selling the mother of your children. Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful religion. Stay far away from this religion. Move quick with precision. Don't you delay in the valley of undecision. Move away far from this religion. Move in the opposite direction. Move to perfection. Jesus is perfection. Yeah.
Clothing, marital rights. We got Leviticus 25. I just did that. Never mind. Yeah, so I mean, it's throughout the Bible. I mean,
Look at it. I just did that. Never mind. This is when you are disorganized and just want to rant.
What is slavery? It's clear. We got daughter selling. We've got, 7 years rule. It's all over. Like there's specifications on how long it should be. It's clear. Like, are you guys saying this is justified?
Yeah. So when you say slavery, you still didn't tell me what you meant by that. You just read some verses in the Bible on when it mentions slaves and how to handle certain slaves. When I asked you, what do you mean by slavery, you still didn't answer that. So let me be more specific with the question. With slavery, do you mean the subjugation of people by force and forcing them into slavery out of their own wills, stealing them from their homelands, and forcing them into labor in your camp? Or do you mean indentured servitude, people giving selling their own service to house them?
What isn't that wisdom? This brother God Logic, I like the wisdom that he came with, because what this Muslim doesn't understand is that there is indentured servant, and the word that is used to translate as slave also translate as servant. And an indentured servant is totally different from a slave. A slave in the sense of what slavery is in our mind today. Because the Chinese and the Japanese, they came to America as indentured servants. And I think the Indian and Chinese came to Jamaica too as indentured servant. Because many people believe that Jamaica is all black. It's not. Jamaica is not an all black place. The motto of Jamaica is out of many, one people. Out of many, one people. That's what the motto, like in America, it says, in God we trust. In which we in America, we no longer trust in God because we take God out of everything. And this is why we see some of the craziness happening today, like all these LGBTQ. I'm putting on my shoe. Do you see what I do? Anyway, and all this craziness. But in Jamaica, the motto is out of many, one people. So we have all kind of Jamaicans. We have white Jamaicans that speak patois just the same way I speak patois. They can speak it. They actually have white reggae artists that speak patois just the same way I speak it. They have Indian from India who are Jamaicans. You have Chinese Jamaicans, Japanese Jamaicans. They're all kind of Jamaicans. So it's, a lot of people don't know. It's just that majority of the people is black, are black. That's just it. But indentured worker and a slave in modern language is different.
Themselves for a job, for shelter and structure of home, a wife servant, as you read. Is that what you mean? Like, what type of slavery are you talking about?
See, I like to stick to scripture. I don't like speaking for my own. Even with Islam,
do you see that? Oh, this dummy is. He like to stick to scripture because what? You don't have a brain to interpret what you read because you're taking things out of context. And this is why I call them Dawa donkeys, because they don't use their brain. They don't use their brain. They spam verses without using their brain to decipher what the context means. And this is why I start this podcast every time, or end this podcast somewhere in the podcast. You can find none of my podcasts, you know, that I don't say, you know, since I start this saying, that I don't say, all praises to the triune God, the God who is above all gods, the God who gives us wisdom to decipher things. If you can't decipher something, if you can't look at things and take it within its context, then guess what you are? You are just like a stone, like the black stone that these clowns are kissing, like they would kiss their mama. They're just like a stone, because what a man without the ability to use his brain I'm not talking about a person who is sick. I'm not talking about a person who is sick. I'm talking about if a man who should be able to use his brain decide not to use his brain, guess what? He's nothing but a stone. He's nothing but a stone, because what? Stone can't use their brain. Stone cannot use their brain because they don't have a brain. In the Quran, the stupid Quran says the mountain refused Islam. In Surah 33, verse 72, he said the mountain and refuse Islam. The mountain have a brain to refuse Islam. You know, the Bible speak about algorithms, but that's not the algorithm. He says, hey, we give religious obligation to the mountains, and they refuse it because they were afraid. This is these idiots acting like the mountain. They don't use their brain. The mountain is even using, according to the stupid Quran, the mountain have more brain than these Muslims, because the mountain reject Islam. They were scared of it. They're scared of the stupidity of it and the danger of it. The mountain was what these idiots call Islamophobe. The mountains were Islamophobe. They're scared of Islam. Was it rational or irrational for them to be scared of Islam? If you read the Quran, read Surah 33, verse 72, and you will see what it says. The mountain was scared of that. You see these guys that they're not willing to use their brain. He said, I'm not willing to give my own this and that. Why aren't you willing to use your brain to see the context of things?
You know, speak on my own desire. I quote references. So again, Exodus 21, verse 20 through 21. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result, but they're not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. The slave, according to the Bible, is their property.
Again, you're still not answering the question. Are you talking about slavery as in indentured servitude, or slavery taking and robbing someone from their homeland, kidnapping them, selling them as slaves, and things of that nature? Like, for example, the transatlantic slave trade. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about indentured servitude? Which one?
Well, I wouldn't be silly enough to say the transatlantic slave trade is, because that's post when the Bible was written. It's post Bible, right? So I wouldn't.
Do you see how stupid he is? God Logic asks him, "Are you talking like?" You know, he give a reference. Are you talking like, say, the? And he said that's post the Bible, because this idiot is not willing to use his brain.
I wouldn't be referring to that. Of course, I would be, you know, quoting these references that the same people who practice the transatlantic slave trade, they applied these verses. Where did they get these, you know, where did they get these rules and regulations from? The Bible.
So, like,
do you see how stupid this guy is? Where do they get this rule and regulation from? The Bible. If they were following Ephesians 5, Ephesians 9, if they were following Ephesians, if they were following Ephesians, the book of Ephesians, do you think that they would have done what they done if they were following Ephesians, the book of Ephesians? Do you think that they would have done exactly what happened? No, they would not. If they were following the book of Ephesians 9, verse 5 to 9, that would have never happened. Never at all happened. So at the end of the day, what law are you governed by? The law of the era that you are living in are the law of past era. It's like me saying, okay, there was a time when people could do certain things in Jamaica. There was a time when there was a law against homosexuality in Jamaica. Literally, where homosexuality were imprisoned in Jamaica. Do you think that the police can imprison a homosexual now in Jamaica? No, they can't. They can't. Because that law doesn't exist no more. So do you see how stupid these Muslims think? Like, okay, there's a law that was given to the Jews at the time of Moses, and so this idiot is saying that, okay, this law is what the people who were taking slave in the transatlantic slave trade and the sub-Saharan trade slave were following. See, there is, the sub-Saharan trade slave, were they following Muhammad? Because there is the transatlantic slave trade, and there's also the sub-Saharan trade slave, where slave trade, where Mohammedans were enslaving black people. So if the people from the West were following the law of Moses, who were the Arabs following? The law of Muhammad? Do you see how dumb this guy is? You follow the law that you are living under. We are living under the Messiah's law. According to Paul, that this idiot quoted, we are living under the Messiah's law. We are not living under Moses' law. We are living under the Messiah's law. So if anybody were supposed to follow the Bible, why are you following the past and not what the present says for you to do? So I don't see what this clown is talking about. Nobody follow the Bible. The evil of man. The evil of men cause slave trade, not the Bible at all. The Bible have nothing to do with the slave trade that happened in the United States. The Bible have nothing at all to do with what happened in America or in Jamaica or in anything. It's just the evil of men that cause these things to happen. And let me show you something that Paul says. Let me read something that Paul says. Since he quote for Corinthian, let's read something from Corinthian. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 21. Those who are without law, as without law, though have been without the law of God, but under the law of Christ. So we are under the law of Christ. And there is nowhere where Christ told us that we should enslave anyone. A matter of fact, Christ even told us to love even our enemies. Matthew 5, verse 44. And notice what Paul says in Galatians 6. Bear one another burden and therefore fulfill the law of Christ. Do you remember what Paul said in Galatians 9? Ephesians 9? That the slave master need to treat the slave the same way the slave treat the slave master. And then you hear what he says here, bear one another burden. That means he's telling the slave master and the slave to bear each other's burden and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6, verse 2. I don't know what this clown is talking about. So nobody was following the Christian principle. No slave master who went to Africa and initiate slave trade were following God's law. As I say, there were many slave owners who were following God's law, because what? They did not, I do believe with all my heart, judging from what I see by my communication with people, and you want to tell me that all the people who came to the United States, all of them were in one accord and one heart towards humankind. No, they weren't. And why do you think that the slaves were freed? Because there were people who were against the treatment. And guess what this color of these people were? White. Christians, white, who were against slave trade. And they started the underground railroad where there's free slaves, where they were freeing slaves. Some of them were buying slaves and freeing slaves. Some of them were actually helping slaves who run away, and some of them were helping slaves to run away. They helped slaves who run away, and some of them were helping slaves to escape. This is and putting their life at risk to free people. So I don't believe in this nonsense and this this blanket statement where you crowd all people in the same thing as if all white people are evil, were evil. No, I don't believe in that. And are evil. No, man. Since I've been here in the United States, I've gone through so much evil amongst blacks than I go to amongst whites. It's just the reality of it. Not that I'm saying that black people are worse than white or white. It's just life. It's just life. That's what it is. That's what life is, man.
Slaves, how to go ahead and take them as captive. So, yeah, I'm not saying they're indentured servants. No, absolutely not.
Okay, got you. So you're saying the type of slavery, you're accusing the type of slavery that you're saying is wrong is, for example,
how is it wrong?
The type of slave I'm asking. This is what I'm trying to get you to say. I want you to give us your position. Are you saying that indentured servitude is wrong, or are you saying that the type of slavery, like for example, the transatlantic slave trade, that type of slavery is wrong? Like, for example, is it wrong to take someone from the...
You have no brain, and this is what when you're dealing with that. Look at the question that God Logic just asked. That's an easy question to answer, but he cannot answer it because guess what? They are copy-paste artists. They are copy-paste artists, and they have no brain cells. They don't believe that using their brain cell is a part of a human condition. Is to use their brain cells to the maximum capacity to think about things and to decipher things, because it's a gift from God Almighty. God give us free will to think about things, and we are created in that image with that ability to think about things in the most critical way. Look at what man is able to do. You know, when I came to the United States, because I'm coming from a third world country, and the biggest bridge in Jamaica at the time was a flat bridge, a bridge called Flat Bridge, which to me was like, when I passed there, I'd be like, wow. But then when I came to America and go back to Jamaica, Flat Bridge is nothing. Flat Bridge is like nothing, because I realized with technology, the advancement that men, when I talk about men, I'm talking about human being, not just man, like male. I'm talking about all mankind. The advancement that our brain, the ability of our brain, like I as a nurse, and the amount of things that I learn about things, I'll be like, wow, I didn't even know these things. You know, when you're learning, and the other day I had to about months ago, so I had to renew my nurse's license, and you have to do these CEU, Continue Education Unit, where you have to study these things and, you know, take tests and pass and all this stuff. And I realized, like, dude, every time you look into something new is added, because knowledge is increasing so much. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful that we are learning so much how to take care of humankind, how to take care of ourselves. You know, but these clowns, they don't believe that they should use their brain. Ask you a question, a simple question like that, and God Logic have to repeat repeat himself.
Their home or raid a village unjustifiably and force people into slavery. Is that wrong to do? Force them into forced labor against their will.
In Jamaica, they would say kananapo. They would say, notice how long you take to answer it. They would say kananapo, meaning that his head is gone. He have no brain, no wisdom to answer. It's like he's stupefied. He's crazy. Like nothing. He have nothing to offer. He came with the ability, with the mindset to run over God logic and all the people on the panel who is involved in this thing. And when you realize it backfiring on him from the get-go.
X.
Did he run away already?
My bad. I was muted. I was speaking. My bad. In my worldview, that's absolutely wrong. According to the Bible, that's exactly what happened.
All right, beautiful.
And
do you notice what he says? In his worldview, it is wrong to go invade somebody's land and take slave. And that's exactly what Muhammad did. Do you see how much this is why I call these idiots? And even Daniel Ikikachu admitted that slavery is necessary. He said slavery is necessary. Slavery is necessary. We played before for you guys where Asim Al-Hakim says in what he said about 40 to 50 years, Muslim will be able to go and conquer the adjacent land. Muslims still have the mind to put people in slavery. They do. They do. They still have the mind to put people in slavery. They have that mindset. Right now, they do. Have the mindset to put people in slavery. But listen to him. In his worldview, it is wrong.
that's why the transatlantic slave trade was justified. It was,
Beautiful.
And it was race-based, clearly.
Okay, awesome. So, all right. So we have a lot of claims being made here. So we have racial slavery being justified in the Bible. We have selling daughters into slavery in the Bible, according to X. All these kind of things. This is beautiful. But we finally.
Well, what about an animal? Which one is according to you?
One second. So we find.
Do you notice they'll allow him to talk and they will ask him some questions? But you're gonna see the difference when the Christians are speaking, how they won't give you a chance to talk.
We finally got an answer that raiding a village and taking people unjustifiably and forcing them into labor, forcing them into slavery against their will, kidnapping people from their homeland and forcing them and selling them into slavery, according to X Planet's worldview, is wrong to do. Beautiful. I'm glad that you said.
Can I back it up?
You want?
You realize now that what the problem is. He realized. He said, "Can I back it up?" And what he's gonna back it up with? Let's see.
You want to backtrack?
Back it up. I want to back it up with Leviticus 25. I mean, it says.
No.
Why are you getting?
Look at him. We agree. We know what's in Leviticus 25. We know what's there, but he don't see. His dumb brain cannot see that he actually condemned Muhammad. His stupid brain, the head that he have, God, Jesus gave him a head to use in the correct way, but because this crazy fool decided not to use his mind in the right way, so he come with this double standard clownery and not thinking like, oh, I'm throwing my God under the bus. I'm throwing my semen covered prophet under the bus. This is the mindset of these Abduls. So let me look and see what people are saying. I love this comment. We human, we all are bad with the propensity to do good. Don't matter what race. There's no race that is better than another race. We could boast and talk and, you know, there is none of us, no race at all that is better than another race. It is all in our mind to think this stupidity as if our race is better than the other race. Thank you, brother. Our race is not better than no race. I'm not into I'm not into racism. I don't deal with racism. You know, I see racism because I'm not blind, and racism come from black side and it come from all other sides. There's a lot of us have some form of racism in us that we need to get rid of, you know. But Dubai, yeah, that's that's the place. My Christian hijab, you're right. Dubai, that's the place. You're right. That Andrew Tate went to. They enslave Kenyan in Dubai and other African nation. I'm telling you, look it up if you think I'm lying. look it up if you think I'm lying. Look at two different sides of the story. Watch this. This clown say Andrew Tate is top G, and my brother say Andrew Tate is a moron. Do you see? There is no race that is better than another race. And this is true. Slavery is alive and well in Islamic world. Totally truth. This is not a lie. It's not a lie. Right now, slavery is alive and well in Islamic world. And Muslims are still thinking right now on a big scale to enslave white, black, Chinese, Indian, whoever they can get to enslave. Even though China have nuclear weapon, America got nuclear weapon, Russia got nuclear weapon, who else? Korea got nuclear weapon. All these places that got nuclear weapon, and these clowns are still thinking that, hey, we're gonna be powerful enough one day to enslave people. They literally believe that. They literally believe that.
It is against the Bible, though, and then you need to respond to these verses, not just keep asking.
No, you're right. X, look, you've already quoted probably like 6 or 7 verses already. I just wanted to at least get your position first on your outlook on slavery and
right, because quoting verses does not say what you mean.
What you're talking about, so that we can know what we're addressing here. So we're addressing the type of slavery that happened during the transatlantic slave trade, basically kidnapping someone from their homeland, unjustifiably forcing them into labor and so forth. We're not talking about prisoners of war, like stuff like that, God's judgment. We're talking about going into folks' lands unjustifiably, forcing them into labor, kidnapping them from their homelands, and selling them as slaves, owning them as slaves. That's what you're talking about. That is wrong according to your worldview.
I missed the last part, but according to the Bible, you are justified into going to other lands, nations, taking people from wherever they belong and enslaving them according to the Bible. Yes.
All right.
That's what I see.
All right.
And the Bible didn't give no command. The Bible gives no command to any one at this time to go into no land and take no one as slave. No command at all. And no command during the transatlantic slave trade was given to anyone to go into no land and take anyone as slaves. During the time of the Messiah, no command was given to go take anyone as slaves. No command at all was given during the time of the Messiah. Muhammad came 600 years later and give command to take people as slaves.
Cool. So can
I take a 10-second call? I'll be right back. Literally 10 seconds. You can just hold it. No cricket sounds. I'm right here.
All right.
10 seconds.
Guys, I hope that you guys are taking notes and remembering what he said. He is against women being sold into slavery, right? And women and daughters sold into slavery.
Can I say something? Can I say
right when I finish the recap.
Brother Aiden, hold on.
Yeah, right when I finish the recap, it's on you, A. So he said he's against women being given into slavery. That's wrong. Raiding villages unjustifiably and going in there and forcing folk into labor, going in people's lands, enslaving them. That's wrong. All of that stuff is wrong according to X. Go ahead, A.
I was saying, why are you saying it like that, Logic? I hope you guys are taking notes. I hope you're doing this. I hope you're doing that. Are you okay with these verses? I'm so confused. Like,
do you see their mindset? He's so confused. He's so confused. They are so dumb that they cannot see what God logic is saying. They believe that this is a one-sided thing. This is literally that what they believe. Is it? It says slavery in the Bible versus slavery in the Quran. Isn't that what it says? Slavery in the Bible versus slavery in the Quran. Isn't that what the topic says here? Am I dumb that I don't see what the topic says? So if you are using double standard, this is what God logic is zooming in on. This is what God logic is zooming in on. And two Muslims, can you imagine? Two brain versus one brain so far. Because we don't hear Chris talking. We don't hear Donnie talking. And I don't know if Study to Show is a Christian. We don't hear him talking. We don't hear Pope talking. We don't hear these people talking. All we hear is God logic versus X. And then the guy called A came in and spoke. Two Muslims, and they can't see where God logic is coming from, because this is how dumb they are. They run themselves up into situation and they don't know how to reason. They have been spamming Bible verses all over so much that when it comes to reasoning, they don't. There is a guy called what his name? Peter Van Polgest. Poelgest, I think. He claimed that he is a Noahide or something like that. When you're having discussion with him, he will copy and paste and keep copy and paste that have nothing to do with what you're discussing with him. He just want to find something that's almost similar to what you're discussing with him, and he copy and paste. So the other day I was talking to him and I said to him, I said, bro, can you stop copying and pasting and reason with your brain? So every time he copy and paste, I would delete it. I said, reason on the topic that we are dealing with. He couldn't. He could not, literally. He could not. And I realized, I said, wow, this is so bad that you reach to a point where you can't even reason with your own brain. And this is what social media and access to the internet will do to you if you don't use it in the correct way.
are you okay with all this? Like,
We're going to answer in a minute because he said a lot of false things.
okay,
We're just trying to get his.
I'm gonna wait for this to come back.
We're just trying to get his position down so that we can answer him, accurately.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also doing 30 for 30. I don't know if you were here when he established that, but we're doing 30 minutes on Christianity. Yeah, we're doing 30 minutes on Christianity.
My bad, bro.
Case. And after that, we're going to do 30 minutes on the Quran or in Islam in general about slavery. So that's the reason why I understand what he said.
All right. So beautiful. So now, X, can you read Exodus chapter 21, verse 17? Since we finally got your position, well, we know that the slavery, what you're against, I want you to read this verse.
I didn't clarify what I meant.
You did.
Clearly, like you're denying that people from other nations were, bought and sold as slaves. You're denying that.
Where did you see God logic deny anything?
Are you implying that this doesn't exist?
Nobody's denying nothing. Can you please read the verse that he asked?
Right. see, Chris got a different. Chris is like between. I'm like there's God logic, then there is Chris, and then there is me, and then there is Sam. You know, but you know, you have to have somebody. Sometimes you have to have somebody like Chris or somebody in there to check these people, because they are so I don't know if there's a word like the, I may be making up a new word. Lunatical. They are so damaged in their mind and their thinking. Where did God logic deny anything? Nowhere.
Asked you to read.
Well, I mean, if you watch the replay, I've quoted several verses. No one
Yeah,
responded.
can you read the verse he asked you to read?
Yeah, so let me make it clear for you what like the direction.
I thought I was supposed to, you know, defend for 30 minutes or whatever. My
Let me, and it's all you. I'm just letting.
He said he thought he was supposed to defend for 30 minutes. How are you gonna defend for 30 minutes? You're gonna talk for 30 minutes. I don't know what is wrong with this guy, man. Do you see how hyper he was getting into the debate? He was so hyper, I'm gonna destroy these people. And guess what happened? Where do you see he destroy anybody?
You know, I haven't denied anything that you brought up so far. I haven't attacked anything. I haven't even objected. All I've been doing is just, you know, marking down your claims. I'm marking down and taking note of your position. That's all I'm doing. So we're going to go through these verses and answer, right? But I wanted your position that you're standing on, which you clearly stated for me. So now I know what to address specifically at its core, and then we can go to the other misconceptions. At its core, your position is that it's wrong to force people into labor against their will, unjustifiably, and to go into people's lands, kidnap them, take them from their homeland, and force them into labor and sell them as slaves. You said that according to your worldview, is wrong.
More. And, you know, to deem them below animals, we can show you in the Bible, Exodus 23, verse 12. Yeah, they're beneath animals, and their children shall be inherited as well.
All right, no problem.
So he says, Exodus, there's a verse in the Bible that said they're beneath animals. they are beneath animals. Wow. Now tell me, from what I read for you guys, where a man have a Muslim man have children with a slave woman, and he later sell the woman. Is that below animal to you guys? Isn't that below animal to you? Who is below animal in the situation? The Muslim man is below an animal. Literally, that Muslim man is below an animal. Because what kind of man is it that think that it is okay to have sex with a slave woman, have children with her, and then sell her as a slave? Don't you think that man, the mind of that man, is below the mind of an animal? Yeah. Below the mind of an animal.
Okay, good. So now, can you now read chapter 21, verse 17 of Exodus?
Okay. So we're not going to address any verses.
We're going to address all those verses in these 30 minutes, Lord willing, Messiah willing.
So if I read this, am I able to go back to my verses?
Well, we're addressing your position, and we're going to address all the claims that you made.
Wait. So you disagree with my position?
Do you see this clown, man? Read the verse and see where it goes. You disagree with my position. Do you see this clown? Do you see this clown? Because they came believing that it was going to go a different way. They came on the podcast believing like, they came on in the room believing that it was going to go a different way. Literally, that's what they believe. That it was going to go to a way where they would spam verses and gallop like a donkey without anybody holding them to what they say.
You know, I agree. I agree with your position that.
So while we're here, you're okay with buying and selling people as
I
slaves
want you to,
from other
I
nations,
want you
inheriting.
to read the verse, please.
What verse
He's
was it
scared.
again? No, I'll read it. Don't worry.
It's
One more
chapter
time.
21, verse 17 of Exodus.
Exodus 21, verse 13, right? Exodus 21, 13.
17.
21, 17.
Mhm.
All right. All right, let me get that out. Okay. Well, what Bible version you want?
The one you have in front of you.
Anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. If people quarrel and one person hits another with a stone or with their fist, and the victim does not die, but is confined to bed, the one who struck the blow will not be held liable if the other one can get up and walk.
21:17. Exodus 21:17.
Anyone who cures, Exodus 20. Anyone
16.
who cures,
Is it 16?
right?
It's 16.
Anyone,
Got longer.
anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still the kidnapper's possession. Anyone who cures their father.
You want me to read verse 16 because he won't.
Am I muted?
He's reading it right now. He's reading it right now.
All right, so read verse 16 again.
Verse 16. Sorry, X. My bad for giving you 17. It was 16.
Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the Bible here explicitly goes against the kidnapping and the forcing of labor of a person, taking them from their homeland, kidnapping them wherever they are, and owning that person as a slave or selling that person as a slave. So, for example, the slavery that you said that you're against, the Bible also condemns and says that that person should be put to death for enslaving that person, correct?
Well, let's check this out. You brought one verse. Now I have a question then. Leviticus, a sincere question. Can we go to Leviticus 25?
Yes, one at a time.
It's just one verse. It's literally one verse.
We're doing one at a time.
I know. It appears. This is the issue with the Bible. It appears so. But I want a sincere question to all Christians. How will you deal with this verse here? Leviticus 25, verse 44 to 46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also...
Notice what it says. Kidnapping and buying is two different stories. Kidnapping slave and buying slave is two different stories. This is what this idiot, his brain doesn't tell him. If one verse is against the transatlantic slave trade where people go and kidnap slave, the Bible is against that too. The Bible is against you going and kidnapping slaves. The Bible is against that. The Old and the New Testament is against that. But buying a slave is different from kidnapping a slave. Because guess what? What a lot of people don't know, man, the way the mind of God works. And this is why me, as a son of a slave, the way I look at slavery is different from the way a lot of people look at slavery. I don't go around and look at white people and blame white people for slavery. I don't. You will never hear me coming from my mouth. Your ancestors enslaved my ancestor in this and this. Oh, you will never hear that from my mouth. Why? Because I believe that everything that happened because of God. Everything happened because God see that it worked. There's a verse that actually says what I want to say. Let me say. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. I want to quote. I want to. Oh yes, here it is. Romans 8 verse 28. Romans 8 verse 28. This is how I live. This is how I live. And when I look at slavery, this is how I look at it. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And if you look at other verses that correspond with this, we see where we believe that God allows things to happen for his own purpose. Even the evil things happen so that God's purpose will be fulfilled. I do believe these things. So you will never see me pointing my finger at a white person. Oh, you guys enslave us and have us. You will never hear me do that, because that's the stupidest way you could ever think if you are to call yourself a Christian. Because I do believe that God have a plan why he allows slavery. I do believe that, because most of us would be Muslim today. Most of us, if it wasn't for slavery, we would be stupid Muslims today. Yes, we would be dour donkeys today. I'm just being real. And when I say stupid Muslim, I don't want you guys to take me out of context. I'm talking about these dour donkeys. These dour donkeys, because the regular Muslim down the road, he don't understand, and she don't understand what this religion is about. She don't. Look at what let me show you what Samuel's 2 Samuel 16 verse 12. Listen to this. Perhaps the Lord will see my affliction and repay me with good for the cursing I received today. Do you see that? So I do believe that God have a purpose in everything. Every evil that he allow to happen is for a reason. It's for a reason. That's what I believe. And that's why you see I don't get into nothing in this dialogue about race. You will never see me in a dialogue attacking white people about slavery and all this stuff. Because for me, I believe that all race have been through slavery. That's what I believe, that all race have been through slavery in one way or the other. That's how I believe. I'm not saying that slavery was not bad. That's not what I'm not saying, because I'm not gonna look at things in a brash way like Kanye West do, because sometimes people need to look at what Kanye West is saying too. He may be using the wrong choice of words, but sometimes what he says is sensible. But I'm not gonna be like him and say, slavery was good and slavery this. No, slavery was bad. Taking people from their own land into slavery was bad, but God allows certain things to happen for a reason. Because mental slavery and spiritual slavery is worse than physical slavery. Mental slavery, and that's why Bob Marley, whose forefather was slave, he says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energies, because none of them can stop the time. And I do believe that mental slavery is the second worst. Why? Because mental slavery leads to spiritual slavery. If you can't use your brain, then you are messed up. And this is what happened to these Abduls. They don't use their brain.
To buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they'll become your property. You can what does it say here? Maybe this translation is all. You can will them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. I just want to know how these people are willingly going to come from other nations, and you're able to just buy them? Is there like advertising? Are you guys like, you know, do you guys have, you know, better air, better
No,
food?
I can answer.
Didn't Muhammad bought slave? Yes, he did. Muhammad bought slave. Muhammad even used 2 black slaves to pay for a white Arab slave. So I don't know what is this guy trying to sell here. You know, what is in his mind that is so grand that we can see? If people are selling slave, say for example, okay, let's look at this, my brothers and sisters. Say right now we're living in a time when people are buying slave, and say I should buy a slave versus when an evil person buy a slave. What do you think the difference is? What do you think the difference is? If I should buy a slave versus when an evil person buy a slave. If the Hebrew Israelite should buy a slave versus when a pagan buy a slave. What do you think the difference is? So why would God not encourage the Jews to buy a slave? He should. If I was a white person with the mindset that I have right now, living in the time of slavery, I would work out as hard as I can to buy the most slave. Why? Because the way I would treat them is different from the way the others would treat them. So I would try to get as much as I can so that they can live a better life under my ruler and leadership. Under Paul's encouragement in Ephesians 9, verse 5 to 10. Do you see that this Abdul is not thinking like, why is it that God was telling his people to buy slaves? There is a reason why he was telling them to buy slaves, because God is the all-wise God. If I am just a regular guy and I can think the way I think, and how do I think the way I think? Because I see what Paul wrote, what God tell Paul. The brother Peter told us that Paul wrote to us with the wisdom that God gave him. And when you read Paul's writing, and this is why these Abdul aid Paul, when you read Paul's writing, you can see wisdom in his writing. Why would Paul discourage in a time when he cannot stop slavery? Because Paul could not stop slavery. Paul was arrested, he was running, he was a prisoner. How could he was not a government official. So how could he stop slavery? He couldn't. But he wrote on how a Christian should treat a slave. So if there were rich Christian people who have money to buy 1,000 slaves, they should buy 1,000 slaves instead of letting another person buy that 1,000 slaves. Do you see the wisdom in God's when God is telling the Israelite to buy slaves, there's a reason for it. And I could read you the laws of God concerning the people who sojourn with the Israelite, the people who travel with the Israelite. God said there is one law that governs all of them. The people in your household, the one law governs everybody in your household, including your slave. You see where God told Abraham to circumcise his slaves, is also including his slave, because they were supposed to live under the same law. They were supposed to live under the same law. God wasn't giving a law different and a law different and a law this and a law this. No.
To that for you.
Before you answer, Scott, he has to answer the first one.
It's a one-on-one.
No, it's not one-on-one. It's open discussion.
I found the internal contradiction. I just want to know how
fine.
You reconcile. Are they
it's not a contradiction, but talk to God logic and
okay, then relax. I mean, I just asked sincerely. Like, I just want to know.
All right, so
is there better air?
Are you going X? We
so you want to know something, but you keep talking.
We can address that verse, no problem. Like I said, we're going to address all of your verses in the 30 minutes that we have. But you got to stand 10 tones down on something, man. We're not going to be hopscotch. So we'll, as soon as you answer this, we'll go straight to that verse you just mentioned, okay? So do you see that the verse, that the Bible condemns the type of slavery that's like the transatlantic slave trade, unjustifiably going into other people's land, kidnapping that person, and selling that person into slavery, or even being caught in possession of this person as a slave.
Can I respond fairly without being interrupted? Just like the Bible says, "Hear, O Israel, your Lord our God is one." You then come.
Oh God, man, what is wrong with this stupid headless donkey? What is wrong with him? Answer the question. The Bible, they gave you a Bible verse to read where the Bible condemn you going to kidnapping people. The Bible condemn kidnapping people, going like they go to Africa and kidnap people and buy people who are being kidnapped. The Bible condemned that. The idiot, and that's what Muhammad did. Muhammad went and kidnapped people because guess what? Muhammad did not only do defensive jihad, he also did offensive jihad. Muhammad did not only do defensive jihad, he did offensive jihad. And we see where the Muslim Sheikh Asim al-Hakim teaches about that. He talks about that there was in the time of the Prophet offensive jihad where they would go to the adjacent land or the adjacent tribe or adjacent people, and they would invade those people just for dawah, just to convert them to Muslims. Do you see? So that was kidnapping. God have never tell his people to go to nowhere and do that kind of stuff and take no slave in that case. No, they were fighting wars. And God tell them, oh, go to war with these people because of reasons. Because of reason. Go to war. Execute my judgment upon these people. There was nothing like, oh, we're just trying to spread dawah and go, oh, because we're trying to spread dawah, we go into somebody's land and invade them and then take slaves. That's kidnapping. That's kidnapping. Muhammad was involved in kidnapping people. And this is what God Logic is trying to tell him, that God is against the transatlantic slave trade and the sub-Saharan slave trade, because they were kidnapping people, kidnapping African people and selling them into slavery. That's what they were doing. So God was against that. But not because God is against it, that doesn't mean that Christian farmers or Christian people were not to buy slave. Do you see? It's what I'm trying to say to you. It's a wisdom in this thing, man. And think about it keenly. Not because God is against the transatlantic slave trade, that doesn't mean that Christian plantation owner or Christian whatever were not to buy slave. They were supposed to buy slave with the intention of treating them better than the secular person would treat them. Because that's the only way you can help. So, and this is why I, for one, don't sit back. You will never hear me in a conversation talking about, man, your ancestor do this to me. And you don't. No, I don't play no race card. I don't have a color problem. I don't use the race card stuff. Oh, this and this and that and that. In some cases, you see these things. You see racism because they are racist people, but they are also racist black people. I've seen racist black people before. When I came here, introduced me to this guy. Oh man, you would like him. He would be a good friend for you to have. When I go up there, the first thing come out of his mouth, we start talking. Man, these white folks, man, I don't want to hear that BS. I don't want to hear that BS. No, ain't no white folks have no rope on me. We are in the same boat, trying to hustle, trying to make our dollar, trying to make our life. I don't look at my neighbor as if she have a rope over my head or something over me. Hell to no. I look at her and I'm a protector. I am her protector. I am her protector. She don't have a husband over there. And the next neighbor, she don't have a husband either. And the other neighbor don't have a husband either. I am her protector. You think I would hear something happening to my neighbor and I don't draw for my things? I'll draw for my things.
Come out with Christians using, don't interrupt, using other verses to justify three gods. The Bible may say one thing.
Do you see where this idiot, what a dumb, idiotic donkey. They asked him a plain question. Does the Bible, the Bible may say one thing. What is the discussion there? What is the discussion? Do you see how stupid he is? Because they don't have the ability to think, man. They don't have God-given wisdom. And that's the problem with these clowns. They don't have the God-given wisdom. There's a guy called what he call himself? Khalil from EA Dawa. That dude is one of the donkeyiest person you could ever meet, man. The man is so donkey that he think about his God's two hands so much. That his God have two hands, that he bother him that his God have two hands and not more. He wants his God to be like a spider. Why only two hands? What? Oh man, this is how stupid they are. Another clown, Abu Bakr, Adamu bin Bakr, he actually believed that women have sperm. This is how stupid they are. All this Dajjal story that they got themselves caught up into, this stupid Dajjal story and the talking ant story and all these dumb stories that they got this. That they said a hand's talking for what reason? What is the reason behind this stupidity?
Intellectually dishonored.
Why am I being interrupted? The Bible can we stay on topic? Can I not get interrupted?
Just let them finish so we can.
Yeah. If I'm saying rubbish, just you know, what I'm saying is this: you have clear verses teaching Christians to worship one God. Jesus himself worshiping one God. Yet you come out worshiping three gods with that same book. It could clearly say one thing and say the opposite thing in other verses, just like I showed. That's why I'm asking: how are these people going to be coming from other nations willingly? They're just going to give themselves up to you as slaves. How?
And where did the Bible say they were coming willingly? Where did the Bible say they were coming willingly? Do you see how stupid this guy is? It doesn't make any sense what he says. The Bible didn't say that they were coming willingly. The Bible tells you how to treat them, that you can buy them, and how to treat them. And as I say, if I was a white man and I was living in the time of slavery and I have the mindset I have, the mindset cultivated by the scripture, not by myself, not because I'm black, but the mindset cultivated by the scripture. And this is why I don't judge white folks and their color. I don't judge nobody by their color at all, because you're not supposed to do that. You judge them by their fruit. By their fruit you judge them. That's how you judge them. So if I was a white person and I was living in the day of slavery, I would buy the most slaves if I could buy slave. Why I would do it? Because I have the mindset cultivated by a Christian, by Paul. Ephesians 9 verse 5 to 10. I have that mindset. So if I have that mindset, I would buy the most slaves, because I wouldn't cringe when I hear my next door neighbor beating his slave. I would cringe and I would be so offended. So if he have a problem slave that is giving him problem, I would buy that slave from him. I said, man, I know you have the slave giving you a problem. Can I buy him? Because when he come to my plantation or property, he will see a different thing. I would treat him in such a way that he would be like, wow. He would be wondering, or she would be wondering, like, what's going on here? Why am I treated in this way? I'm not treated like a slave, because that's the cultivation that Paul, that's the cultivation that Paul gave us. And for us to continue with that cultivation, and water that seed, water that plant, so that plant will grow. That's Christianity. So do you see? I don't know, man.
Do you have better air? You guys got a bunch of KFCs. What's going on in this
So are you going to
specific
answer
region?
the question at all, X? Are you going to answer the question? Can you?
Do you want me to just say it outright? Do you want me to say it outright? Okay, I'll say it. I'll say it. The Bible has internal contradictions, which I just proposed. I just showed you one. Can you deal with it?
You know what? He came there with the mindset that he was gonna run over God logic, and then he'd never see that verse. The verse that God logic tell the clown to read, he never seen that. Because guess what they do? They go to these Islamic web pages and they take things from there. They take things from there, and that's what they do. They go to all these web pages of spamming and they take things from there. So they didn't know that there was a verse that condemned capturing, just going and go capture people like that and kidnapping people. And guess what? There is one written by Paul in Timothy. There is one written by Paul in Timothy that the people who are kidnappers will not inherit heaven. There is actually one written by Paul. Let me see if I can find it here. Paul actually wrote, because Paul understands the law more than any one of us. Paul was a teacher of the law, and he understands the law more than any one of us. Timothy. Listen to this. Listen what Paul says. Listen what Exodus 21:16 says. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession. I have it right here. I have it right here. And notice what Paul says. Exactly the same thing. 1 Timothy 1:10. For the sexual immoral, for those practicing homosexuality, for the slave trader and the liar and the perjurer, and for whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. Do you see what Paul says? Paul says for the slave trader, people who go about kidnapping people and selling them into slavery. That's what they're talking about. The slave trader, like Muhammad, who kidnapping people, selling them into slavery. He says, and the liar and the perjurer, like Muhammad, for whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. And look at this. Muhammad is guilty under the law. Under this law. Under this law, Muhammad is guilty. And how do we know that? Sahih al-Bukhari, book 34, hadith 351. Sahih al-Bukhari told us that Muhammad was going around capturing even Arab women, his own people. His own people. Excellent Arab women. We capture some excellent Arab women. Own people. Allow his men to have sex with them, ejaculating the women, and then sell them into slavery while they may be possibly pregnant. This is how much of an evil religion this religion is.
No problem. So are you acknowledging that this verse goes against unjustifiably going into people's lands, kidnapping them, and forcing them into slavery and selling them as slaves?
I'm posing an internal contradiction that there's no way.
So say no.
X, it's not about, hold on, look. X, if you want to imply a contradiction later after you answer the question, fine. He's not asking you about a contradiction that you may think is a contradiction. He's simply asking you about this verse alone. He's not asking you, is it a contradiction? He's asking you, does it go against what you claimed?
It does not. Absolutely not. It does not go against what I claim. I claim that the Bible commands, the Israelites to enslave other nations, and it's telling them, come from any of the. Let me read it again. Your male and female slaves are to come from.
His brain is fried. Your male or female slave can come from other nation, yes, but you are not supposed to go and kidnap them. You could buy them, but you're not supposed to go and kidnap them. And as I tell you, man, buying a slave is not a problem. You know, and this is why, you know, I look at life and I said, do I believe that all these slave owners were beating slave and treating slave like? I don't believe that. I don't believe that. That's the rhetoric that people want to sell to us. Not wanting to look at things as if there is two sides to things, and sometimes 3 sides and 4 sides and 8 sides, because you got octagon and you got pentagon and you got all kind of guns and guns. There is many sides to stories and many different aspects of things of life. And you don't tell me that there were every single white folk who have slaves in those days were just beating on these slaves and treating them. And no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I don't.
From the nations around you, from them you may buy slaves. I just want to know, are these people, show me where they're willingly coming from, these other nations. If they're coming willingly, then
X, we heard you. Hold on, X,
if they're coming willingly, 10 seconds. If they're coming willingly, you could show me that they willingly decided to come from the surrounding. I'm up 10 seconds.
And they're stupid too. How do you know that these people weren't coming willingly? How do you know that these people who were captured weren't happy to be bought as a Hebrew slave instead of as a slave by the Hebrews or the Israelite instead of other nations? How do you know that? Because the other nations used to sacrifice people to their gods. If you look at it, the other nations used to sacrifice children and sacrifice people to their gods, but Israel was not doing that. So how do you know that they were not willing to go to the Israelite instead of going to anywhere else? How do you know that? Like, you know, what kind of question, what kind of mindset? Why do you ask these stupid questions? How do you know, if I was a slave during the time of slavery, and I know of a Christian man who was a slave and was treating his slave the way Paul said to treat the slave, I would aspire as a slave to be the slave of that man. How do you know that the condition of a slave in the Hebrew system was not even better than the way the people were living in their own system? How do you know that? You don't know these things. So for you to be drawing to these conclusions, senseless conclusion, that's just babbling to me. Because when we look, let me read something. Let me read something from the Bible. Let me read something from the Bible. Let me read something. Look at this. Leviticus 25, verse 44 to 46. As for your male and female slave whom you may have from the nations that are around you, from them you may buy male and female slaves. Moreover, you may buy the children of the stranger who dwell among you and their families who are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall become your property, and you may take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as a possession. They shall be your slave forever. See what this clown, I'm gonna show you something. Let me share this with you guys, because this is important. What these Muslims don't know, they don't know how to understand Hebrew. I will show you. They will go into the book of the Hebrew book and they see the word forever And they believe that the word forever means perpetual in every case. It does not. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Look at this, my friends. Do you notice what God says here? They shall be your slave forever. But yet still, what happened? The Hebrew word forever, for forever, is, what is it? Olam. And olam does not mean infinity in most cases. Look at this. David says in Psalms 23 verse 6, surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Where is David now? Is David in the house of the Lord? No. So you have to read things in context of the overall. So when God is saying, and they shall be your slave forever, it means as long as it lasts. One set of people can say, you know what, I don't no longer want you to be my slave. Go free. Forever, when David said, I shall be in the house of the Lord forever, it means as long as he lives, as long as it lasts, as long as David lasts, as long as he's alive, I shall be in the... David is dead, he is not in the house of the Lord. Forever for a man means as long as he lives, or as long as he wants, or as long as the law is binding on him. Do you see what I'm saying? As long as the law is binding on him. So the Jews could buy slaves from the other nations, but even under these laws, there is another condition made by God. Look at this. Leviticus 19:34. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Do you see that? So there is many, many laws that God gave. So even, and do you see, oh wow. Do you see that Paul is teaching this law? Do you see that Paul is teaching this law? Because Paul said to treat the slave like you treat yourself. And what this says, the foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as you love yourself. So even if you have a slave, you're going to treat that slave as you love yourself, as you treat yourself. That's what the Bible teaches. Even a foreign slave was to be treated as an Israelite. This is not slavery in modern sense, but a brotherhood of protection and love. A brotherhood of protection and love. This was the design of Yahweh. This is a family relationship. Let's look at how the New Testament. So we already show you guys about the New Testament where Paul break things down. And Paul is saying the same thing. Same thing in other words. Same thing in other words. Do you see? Same thing in other words. I wanted to look at the Muslim perspective, but let's I think I might have to make 2 videos from this, because I wanted to look at the Muslim perspective, you know, but sometimes I wanted to look at from the Muslim angle, and I will do that tomorrow. I will edit this title, and I will do that if God's will tomorrow. I will do that and show you guys how evil slavery was in Islam. I will show you more, and the wickedness that was done in Islam to the slave. versus what the Bible teaches about slavery.
If you show me the verse that says these people came willingly from these other nations, then you've got a point.
All right. So now look, that is not what Avery is trying to deal with you with at the moment. He's asking you about the claim that was made. He's asking you, does that verse take that verse in a vacuum? Now all of a sudden you guys don't want to take verses in a vacuum. He's trying to establish something based on that verse first. Hang on to that verse. He's asking you, does that verse that he read, Exodus 21:16, where it says, whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. Does that go against raiding lands and enslaving people? Yes or no? Be honest.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I'll show you why. And
Okay,
I'll show
no.
you why.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You can't just take it upon yourself and go raid any land and capture anybody. God gave his commandment to his people to destroy certain people, but you of yourself as an Israelite cannot just go and raid anybody's land. But Muhammad was doing that because what is defensive? What is offensive jihad? What is offensive jihad? The Quran and maybe yes, if you really look into the Quran, it actually teach offensive jihad. So the God of Islam is sinning against the God of the Bible, because when you look at say for example Surah 9 verse 29, Surah 8 verse 39, and Surah 8 verse 12, all those surahs, you will see you will believe that Muhammad was fighting people who were fighting him, but not in all cases. Not in all cases. According to Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim, Muhammad was practicing offensive jihad, where he was attacking people just to spread Islam.
Okay,
come on, bro.
No.
What are we doing?
Okay. Now we're gonna
deal with the
answer.
verse.
Hold on.
Why are these surrounding nations supposed to willingly just come to you? How is that possible?
All right,
Stay cool, man. Dude, come on.
So he's just so settled and people willingly come to you. But as I say, if I was a slave living in the time of slavery, and I know of people who were treating their slaves as the Bible is directing us, as the Bible directed, not us, but because the Bible is against slavery now, you know, in any form now. But if the Bible was directing people in the days of slavery to treat their slave, if I was a slave, I would want to go with a Christian who followed the Bible. I would. But would I want to go with a Muslim who followed the Hadith and the Quran? No, I would not. I would not. I would not. If you take, for example, the Hadith that I read where Muslims were selling the women who have children for them. We used to sell our slave women and the mothers of our children. So they were selling women who are slave women who have children for them. Does the Bible tell you you can do that? No. The Bible actually says that if you marry to a slave woman, if you take a slave woman and you marry to her and you don't no longer like her, you have to let her go free to go wherever she chooses, because you have humbled her. You had sex with her. But look at this. These men have sex with the slave women, have children with them, and still we're selling them. Still we're selling them.
Come on, man. We need some honest people in here, man.
Yeah, here. Let me just answer real quick.
Same way you say that there's a Trinity, yet Jesus said there's only one true God.
What is wrong with this guy? Who is talking about Trinity? What a dumb, idiotic donkey. Who is talking about Trinity? now he knows that he make a mistake and he sees that something is wrong. He came with the intention thinking, because they go to this website, and I've been to their website before. If you go to Facebook, they have a whole bunch of these places where you could go and you could get meme already made. And in this meme, you have, and what a meme does, let me tell you something, why you think Muslims use memes more than Christians use meme and Facebook. Because what a meme does, a memes is like advertisement, and it is like a billboard. So if you walk into a city and there's a big billboard advertising tourism in Jamaica, and then there's a man writing little thing, writing little, giving out little pamphlets about tourism. Guess which one is a better advertisement? The billboard. The billboard. And even though the billboard may be wrong, advertisement may be the worst advertisement, the worst hotel in Jamaica, the billboard advertisement gonna capture people eye more than anything advertisement, because it's a big billboard, huge, especially if it have features like lights and movements and stuff like that. It will capture people's eyes more. Like, you ever go on vacation or somewhere and you're hungry and looking for a restaurant to eat at, and you're driving along because you don't know the neighborhood. You're driving along and you're looking, and then you see a restaurant with all these nice things, and you think this is the best Mexican restaurant, and you go there and you'll be like, whoa, this ain't no Mexican food. Because it have all the Mexican features and all this stuff, and the advertisement looking so nice. But when you walk in there, you realize it's not the real authentic Mexican food. And you'll be like, wow, man, you already waste all your money. You just might as well eat the food. But you didn't enjoy the food you eat because it didn't taste Mexican, and a matter of fact, it didn't even taste good.
We already established we're not speaking about a contradiction yet. You're so dishonest that you can't take this verse that's very clear that goes against going in and stealing a man. It says, whoever steals a man and sells him shall be put to death. So you can't go into a nation and steal a man and sell him, and yet you're saying no, that verse doesn't go against that.
So explain to me which nation willingly will go to the Israelite nation and then give themselves.
Okay, I'm going to explain that. Look, we
deal with it. Study.
They need to get to that. Like, I'm surprised they take so long to get on him, because that's what his mind is dwell on. Which people would willingly sell themselves? It's not people selling themselves. It were people selling other people to. And selling other people. So if the Israelite didn't buy them, somebody else would have bought them, because slave trade was prominent. So even though God condemned Israelite from raiding lands without his commandment, raiding lands and just go and sell people, capture people and sell them, God is not against them buying people who are being sold. Why? Because God give them laws that govern the way they would treat the people who they buy. And I read the law where they tell them how to treat the people, to love the people who they buy and treat them in certain ways. How they buy. If they buy these people, treat these people this certain way, because you were once bought and sold in Egypt. You were once slave, bought and sold in Egypt. So you need to treat the people who are among you just like you were in Egypt. You need to treat them like you treat yourself. That's what God says.
I know you see it. They don't see it. Go ahead and refute me.
Listen.
Yeah, this is going straight over your head, bro.
No, he
it's going straight over his head like an aeroplane going over to land at the airport.
He gets it. He's just, like you said, he's just dishonest.
If you disprove the claim that studies desperately trying to refute,
let's go ahead and let's go ahead. The audience sees it. The audience sees that the verse goes against this idea of going in and unjustifiably kidnapping people, forcing them into labor, and selling them into slavery. The Bible goes against that specifically, and so the position that X holds that he's against, the position of doing just that, he said that he's against. The Bible is also against that, and so now we're moving on. If he doesn't want to admit that this verse says that, that's fine. The audience sees it. Now we're going to move on. To
I admit the verse says what it says, but it won't.
One second, please. One second.
I'm agreeing with you. It says what it says. If that's what you want me to say.
1 second, please.
No, it's too late for you to do that, bro. Let him talk.
Yeah, go ahead. So now we're going to answer some of your objections. Like, first of all, the one that you brought up here with Leviticus 25 about going in, taking slaves of the surrounding nations that you isolated and took out of context. Any other brothers, you guys want to chime in on that? You guys can. I have answers as well.
Do you notice what God Logic said? He take it out of context, because that's what they do. They jump into the Bible, take what the Bible say out of context. Because I have a Muslim once tell me, where he was quoting Paul. He was quoting Paul, and he says, Paul says in Ephesians 5, slave, obey your earthly master with respect and fear. And I was like, wow, did you read the rest of did you read to verse 10? No. And then he would not. He wasn't even trying to listen to verse all the way to verse 10. Because that's what they are. They go to the Bible right now. If you go to their website, you have them quoting Paul saying, when it comes to slavery, that you have them quoting Paul saying, slave, obey your earthly master with respect and fear. And guess what? They stop it there. They don't go no further. That's it. So you must obey your earthly master, and they would ask the question, so if your master want to have sex with you, then you could have sex with you, because that's what they take out. They leave out the rest. They don't care about the rest at all. And this is how dangerous these wicked bastards are.
We got 8 minutes left of this particular segment, guys. We got to get to these objections.
Okay, so basically, Israel was God's chosen nation, okay, and Israel will be the head, not the tail. So Israel was wealthy. So when you're in a position of wealth, in those times, you had what was called indentured servants, where people would sell themselves to you for housing. So the Israelites were told that people would come from other nations, and people from within the nation would come to become slaves because they are wealthy, because God gave them a land flowing with milk and honey. So that's why people from other nations came. And you could negotiate yourself into slavery or indentured servitude, where you would live with the Israelite family. They would feed you. They would provide shelter for you, and you would be their slave. Okay. And slave is not the same word that we use in this same connotation. Okay. The first rule that God said is the golden rule, is to treat others as you want to be treated. And then he gave them laws for how to deal with slaves. So when you're dealing with slaves, you know, you still have to treat them with care. Numerous times in the Bible, it says, remember that you were once slaves in Egypt. So, you know, act accordingly. Don't ever.
Yeah, and that's the verse that I read for you guys, where he says, that's the one that I read for you, where it actually go as far as to say, the foreigners residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as you love yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So literally what God is actually saying here is the foreigners residing with you. And if you notice, he says the foreigners, and it's not calling them slaves. Because what God is in God's mind and God's design, these people weren't supposed to be living in like a slavery, just like they were living in Egypt. They were supposed to be living in more of a family relationship where you treat them in love and brotherhood. Because if he said, love them as you love yourself, can you imagine? God is telling you to love the person who this Abdul see as a slave as you love yourself. That's not a slave. If I have somebody in my house that I love like I love myself, how is that person considered a slave? I love my son like I love myself. That doesn't mean my son is not a slave. I love my wife like I love myself. My wife is not a slave. I love my neighbor like I love myself. My neighbor is not my slave. Not my slave. So I don't know about these people, man. I don't know. They are Abduls. They are Abduls, literal slaves. Real slaves. Slave mentality.
Mistreat people. But yes, God did deliver nations that he judged into the Israelites' hands. They didn't go out and take captives. They didn't go out and do offensive jihad.
So this brother is what is study to show he knows what he's talking about. They didn't go out and do offensive jihad. Offensive jihad. We see where the sheikh tell you what offensive jihad. I'm tired of playing that clown sheikh, on my videos. What offensive jihad is. But the sheikh tells what offensive jihad. For the sake of new subscriber, I will just play a little clip of that just to show what offensive jihad is. Let the sheikh speak. Let me hear it from the mouth of the donkeys. Let's hear it from the mouth of the donkeys, because sometimes what happened is
of Allah Azza wa Jal. However, jihad can
that starts real early. This is where we're supposed to be here.
Dafa, you find it in the doors. Idfa of jihad is the one that everyone trying to hide. Other type of jihad is the one that everyone trying to hide.
So this sheikh is saying the other type of jihad is the one that everyone is trying to hide. Every Muslim is trying to hide this. This type of jihad, every Muslim is trying to hide it.
And it's called jihadut talab. And this means that the jihad of pursuing, running after. And this jihad was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But
do you notice what he says? The jihad of pursuing, running after. And this jihad was at the time of the Prophet. So Muhammad was doing this kind of jihad, pursuing people and running after. He wasn't defense. Somebody wasn't attacking him. He was attacking people.
This jihad cannot be accomplished, cannot take place unless the state of the Muslims is strong. If you don't have a strong Muslim country, who can they pursue or attack? No. Stay where you are. Just try to fix yourself, enrich your people with Islamic knowledge and Iman, then you can go. And what is the reason behind such jihad? Number one, to call them to Islam. It is for da'wah.
Oh, so you see what? The only reason for this jihad is to call them to da'wah. So the only reason for this jihad is to attack people. Is to attack, just attack and spread Islam. It's not that the people hate you and want to hurt you or want to do nothing harm to you. It's just that, we are going to just attack them and murder them. Murderer! That's it. So you see that. And he goes on to say, if you guys watch this, true meaning of jihad, Asim Alakim, he goes on to say that in 50 years, 40 to 50 years, I think he says, if I'm quoting him right, the Muslim will be able to do that because these clowns do believe. Why do you think that they're going after Andrew Tate and they're going after people like Jordan Peterson and people like those? Why do you think they're doing that? They see the influence that these people have, and they believe that these people can turn a population like the American population into majority Muslim. If it's majority Muslim, then they can do whatever they feel like. If it's majority Muslim, then guess what? They have a Muslim president. Yeah. If America become majority Muslim country, then they have a Muslim president. And then when they have a Muslim president, they can do whatever they feel like. Then if British become majority Muslim, then they have a Muslim prime minister. And if a Muslim prime minister, they got more power. If France, the same thing. If Australia, the same thing. If wherever you are in the world. That is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to do. So don't underestimate when you see them going after Andrew Tate. We as Christians sit back and don't do nothing about it. We need to reveal these clowns. I'm surprised that I saw a video from David Wood yesterday and the low amount of view it got. And I'm surprised because we need to pay attention to the idiot Andrew Tate. Literally, we need to. Because what? Our young men are so depraved of fatherly figures that they will follow people like Andrew Tate. Our white young men, our black young men. Because let me tell you something. Don't believe this is only about a black. Because a lot of black neighborhood, the fathers are in jail and all over. In a lot of black neighborhood, the fathers are in jail and they don't care. There's a lot of the statistics show that there's a lot of single parent family, mother taking care of kids in black neighborhoods in certain places. So, but also because of video game, white kids are exposed to Andrew Tate. Because video game is a dangerous thing. My son will never play a video game if it's up to me. Never play a video game. Boy, go take up your Bible and read. That's what, when my son can read, no video game. Homework, Bible, he can watch some TV. And we travel and let him see places. Play sports, music. That's the kind of thing I will involve my... No. Anytime he idle trying to do something crazy, go take up your Bible and read it. Because what? Video game is dangerous to our children. Video game is dangerous, addicting. It's like drugs to our children. And because of video game, even children who grow up with a father in their home become deviant, have deviant behavior. Let me show you why. Because in those video games, they teach them to rob people, shoot people. So people like Andrew Tate have influence on people who play video game. Even though their father and their mother may be the best father and the mother provide for them, because of the gadget of a video game and rap music, not only rap music, but even country and western music too. Because they have these later version of country and western and rock and roll music and all this music that is crazy, demonic music. Because rap music, a lot of rap music is demonic. And even reggae music, dancehall reggae music, a lot of it is demonic. Demonic music. And it's not good for our children. Expose our children to things that they would have never been exposed to if it was. If you go into my car, the moment you start the engine of my car, guess what? Guess what? The moment you start it, I am on the gospel station. And I don't listen to that gospel station with the singers shouting shouting and screaming. No, I listen to the one with the singers are poetic and meaningful. Meaningful and poetic. I mean, you are getting something from the Bible, something that is meaningful from there.
Ask people to take part in the jihad so that they can get slaves. So your concept of what you think the Bible is saying is completely wrong. That's my response.
When you spoke about the treatment, how do you deal with when a man strikes his male or female slave with a rod so hard that the slave dies under his hand? He shall.
I'm so glad that we got to this part right here, because we're going to reveal some things.
Be punished. If, however, the slave survives a day or two, he's not to be punished since the slave is his own property. Are you telling me this is the treatment of slaves according to your book? Is this the treatment of slavery you're justifying?
So I'll answer that as well. So if you read very closely, because what would happen is let's say you took a slave, and you specifically a Hebrew slave. The Hebrew slave would say, "Hey, I'm not going to work for you. I'm not going to do this work."
But I thought they came willingly.
Listen. They're poor. They need shelter, so they come and they stay with you. God says that you are allowed to strike them, but you are not allowed to kill them. If you kill them, you will be punished, probably punished by death.
And I disagree with the brother right here. God didn't say you are allowed to strike them. God didn't say that you are allowed to strike them. Let me read and show you. We got to be careful. I disagree with the brother. I love him, but I disagree with him. You know, he's a very pleasant dude, and I respect him. But I disagree with him. Let me show you. Let me show you why I disagree with him. I totally disagree with him. God didn't tell that you're allowed to strike them. Let me tell you, God is prepared for everything. God is prepared for everything. And I will show you why I say that. And then we wrap up and I continue tomorrow from where we left off here. God is prepared for everything. And this is how beautiful my Father is. You know, when I think about God, sometimes tears come to my eyes. And the reason why, you know, tears come to my eye when I think about God like this is because of how beautiful he is and how much his wisdom extend among beyond our wisdom. Because the brother is the Christian brother there, he's actually looking at it from man's point of view. I used to think that way too, until something deep, something above me, or should I say someone above me, revealed to me that let's look at this, that there is something bigger going on. There's something bigger going on. Let's look at it. That sometimes we don't see these things, and the brother didn't see this. You know, I hope he get a chance to watch this and see, because God didn't say you can beat the slave. He didn't want you to beat. Remember, he said to love them like you love yourself. Do you beat yourself? No, you don't. Do I beat myself? No, I don't. So if I love my wife like I love myself, I shouldn't be beating my wife. Should I? No. If you know, my son, on the other hand, if he do something wrong, there's a law that I correct my son. But there's no law that you should beat your wife. In the Quran, there's a law to beat your wife in Surah 4 verse 34. But in the Bible, there is no law that you should beat your wife. He said, love your wife as you love yourself. But if you look at the screen that I'm showing you right here, it says, if a man sell his daughter, notice if. Pay attention to the if. If is a preposition used in case of. The God wasn't telling you to sell your daughter, because the Israelites were supposed to be helping each other anyway. Because if you love your neighbor as you love yourself, your neighbor would be okay. Really, if we were living the right way that the Bible tells us to live, my neighbor wouldn't go hungry. When my mom, oh wow, the beautiful case of loving your neighbor as you love yourself was when I was a child. The most beautiful case, and I want to live that way. I want to live. My mom used to practice that law. I remember my mom would cook in the biggest pot you ever see, even though we were many, but she would cook way more than we could eat. In the biggest, I'm telling you, the pot that my mom was cooking in is restaurant pots. I'm telling you, restaurant pots. And then when she finished cook, she have a smaller pot that she would share some food out, and she would say to me, son, take this up to Miss so-and-so. And then she would say, she would come to the window or the door, and she would holler to the neighbor, and the way she holler was was kind of crazy. She would actually, like a song, she would call the woman, like she would say, Miss Joyce, who? That's how she echoed it out. And then the call would came, the answer would come back similar. And she said, come, come. And then the woman would come with a pot. And my mom would put into the pot, and then the woman would go home. So she go home and share with her family. That's how I grew up. And we were poor as church mouse. Is that what they call it? Poor as a church mouse? Is that what it is? A poor as a church mouse? Is that... So look at it. Do you notice notice it's similar? God said, if a man beat his slave, and I hope I could find it here. Do you notice the preposition if? This is a law put in place to protect servant in case a man sell his daughter, because this was common practice. This was the reality of the time. Jews were not to sell each other to the foreigners, and they were to love their neighbors as they love themselves. Do you see that? Do you see how easy these things are to put together? So it's a if, in case this happened. Like if my wife said to me, hey babe, call this number in case your car break down. Say I was having problem with my car, which God forbid that I have. You know, my car is old now and it's going great. But so say I should have a problem with my car, and my wife say, babe, if you're having problem with your car, call this number, which she did. She did get AAA for me. So that she did. So I'm telling you a true scenario. Call this number. If she said if, that doesn't mean that she want my car to break down. No, she's saying if, in case. So God didn't want, no, look at this. Look at this. If your fellow Israelite become poor and sell themselves to you, and give themselves to you as, literally, give themselves to you as servant. That's what he's saying. Do not make them work as slaves. Because notice what he says, do not make them work as slaves. So, we're not getting into that. But we want to get into the if. Let's go to the if. Continue to the if. So you see what if means. I know the brother. The word if, you got to take the word if into consideration. So God was saying, if these things happen, because God knows it will happen. He knows it will happen because he is God. He knows it will happen. So he's telling, in case this happen, this is what you need to do. He wasn't telling you that it was okay. He wants you to sell, to buy to do this, and he wants you to beat your slave. No, he was saying if you did it, because he know it would happen. He knows the mind of man, and he know that it would happen. Where is it? I have it here, my people. I want to cover this and then done. And then I will be done. And I thank you guys. Here it is. Wow. Do you see this? If a man beat his male or female servant, he said, if. It doesn't mean that you should beat he says, if you do it. Because what? I said to my son, if you get in trouble, say my son was older, and I said, hey, I don't want you to go out there, but if the police ever pull you over, please call us. Before you even stop the car, please call us. Please have us on line before you stop the car. That's what I would tell my black son in America. If the police pull you over, please call me before you stop the car. Don't drive away from them, but before the car come to a stop, pull over, but before the car come to a stop, you should be on the phone calling me or your mom. That's what I would tell my son. Any person, whether black or white, need to tell their son that if the police pull them over, because the police make mistakes. They are human beings, and sometimes they hurt people, not only black but also white, because the police kill more white people than they kill black people in incidents. We don't even know that. A lot of us don't know. But anyway, so if you notice what I say here, and this has been written for, like, I wrote this maybe 2 years ago. But there goes the preposition if again. God was telling the Jews, he said, God was not, look at this, God was not, and let me put this in large, was not. This is important. God was not telling the Jews to beat their slaves. God did not want the Israelite to beat the slave. He was just dealing with the reality with his foreknowledge. He already told them to treat the foreigners among them. Watch this. Do you see that? So God was dealing with the reality. So I disagree with the brother in this case, but that doesn't mean that the brother is ignorant or anything. It's just that I disagree with him. So let us wrap it up here. And what I'm going to say to you people, man, God bless you all, man. And thank you guys for coming out. I know I started the stream so long. I don't know, man. I need to pace things better than I do. But, thank you guys, man. I appreciate you guys, and God bless you guys. And, it's good that we have this discussion, and God bless you, man. And tomorrow I will go into the other 30, if God's will. I try to start earlier, and we get into it. I was trying to start like about 10 o'clock in the morning, about 9 in the morning. For some reason, I love the 9:40. For some reason, I don't know why I love it. I love you too, my brother. I love you. What did he say? Recorder. He said something about recorder. I don't know what he mean. I love you too, my brother. I love all of you guys. My brother or sister. Because 13 above could be a brother or a sister. I don't remember if you're a brother or a sister. But when I finish, I'm gonna make some more mods, and sometimes I am sorry sometimes for not involve you guys more in. Christian Malik is a joker, man. Look at if you forget to pray, fudge, Satan urinates in your. This guy is so funny. I'm a brother. Thank you, man. Thank you. You're my brother. This guy is so. If you pay attention to the things he say, man, you have no, you get nowhere. This guy is funny, man. You're a brother, thank you. The true word, bro. I love this guy, man. He reminds me of Jamaica every time he talks. The true word, brethren. Zine bless. That's how Jamaicans talk, you know. I understand exactly what he's saying. But Christian Malik, that guy, that guy, he is off the chain, man. You will say some things, you'll be reading it while you're talking, and you'll be like, wow. That guy. And one day, he gave me a suggestion the other day, and I'm gonna see if it will work, where I could get Muslim to come on and have dialogue. You know, to be real with you, I need to. Who is the dude talking about what? What a Black Lives Matter, dude? I'm not into Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, they are thieves. It's a Black Lives Matter. Me, I'm not into Black Lives Matter, man. I don't know nothing about. So you there you go. You already start making mistakes already, my friend. Black Lives Matter. I mean, every life matter to me. White, black, Chinese, Indian, every life matter. I don't have a color problem, man. Black Lives Matter have a color problem. I don't. They have a problem robbing their own people. You know, and so these are the two channels: Shake Your Booty channel and Islam is a Mess. So guys, thank you guys, and I love you guys. And remember, all praises to the triune God, the God who is above all gods, the God who gives us wisdom to decipher things and to make sense of sensible things and to make nonsense of things that are nonsense. And Islam is nothing but pure nonsense. And I want to tell you, give you this message like I always give you guys, man. When you're out there, man, keep it 100% Jesus, man. Pure love, man. Pure respect for God. Because whether you live or die, you're safe. Whether you live or die, you're safe. So keep it 100% Jesus. And I love you guys. And I will see you tomorrow if it is God's will. You know, I love to say that because this is what the Bible teaches, that if it's God's will. None of us know if tomorrow is a promise to us, man. You know, we don't know. You know, right now I could be saying a word and then fall, and you guys say, what happened? Next thing you know, there is no more Islam is a Mess and no more Shake Your Booty. Anyway, man, God love us and we should love ourselves and we should love him in return. So let's say bye for now and see you guys later.